Welcome to the Muscles and Mindset Revolution, the podcast for busy, ambitious women who are tired of chasing quick fixes and are ready to finally achieve the results they want. Stronger bodies, sustainable habits, and long-term fat loss. I'm your host, Ann Jones, certified life coach and fitness professional for over 15 years, and your guide to breaking free from inconsistency, overwhelm, and burnout. Each week, we tackle the real obstacles holding you back, time management struggles, mindset barriers, and conflicting advice, so you can build a lifestyle of accountability, functional fitness, and strength that lasts. If you are ready to transform your habits, prioritize yourself, and feel strong and energized for life, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome to our first episode. In this first episode, I'm taking you back to where it all began. My time at Ryerson University, now Toronto Metropolitan University, which is where I moved at 17 years old from a small town in northern BC, a town of 4,000 people approximately, to the big city, which was you would think would be a massive culture shock, but actually I don't even think that I realized it at the time that I felt out of place and insecure. But I did know that I was in a real city and I was surrounded by all these worldly, affluent, beautiful girls. But really the two biggest shocks were not the fashion or the traffic or the sounds, but the two biggest shocks were actually having to feed myself and no longer dancing competitively for a dozen hours a week to keep me active. My darling mother tried to teach me how to cook. I just didn't have an interest. I did stuff around the house, but I had no interest in learning cooking. And I still don't really, to be honest. But I do feed myself, but we're going to get to that. And I used to dance competitively for many hours a week. So I never worried about activity or fitness or literally ever. And I grew up with a very healthy relationship with modeled by my mother. But when I moved to the city and I'm 17 years old and all alone, I saw a lot of people around me, both, at university and in the media, being very aware and conscious of what they were eating. And I think I just started to see it. I didn't really start out that way. But because I wasn't dancing competitively anymore, and I had never made a lot of food choices for myself before, really, I gained 30 pounds quite quickly in my first year, in the first few months probably. And I'm so glad that I did, because it changed the trajectory of my entire life. My relationship with food got a little wild. I didn't know how much to eat or what to eat or how to know if I was full. I think I kind of did, but I would just override it. But the worst part really was that I thought or worried about food constantly. What I could eat, what I shouldn't eat, what I should have avoided, when I should eat. I remember watching Friends and wondering, how are the people living their lives not thinking about food all the time? I'm always thinking about food. Always. I remember waiting for the clock to turn from 2:59 to 3 so that I could have a snack. Waiting for the clock to turn to 5:55 so that I could go downstairs for dinner. I felt this constant low-level anxiety of food. I tried starving myself. My next-door neighbor, who's now one of my very best friends, is an activist. And so she would do hunger strikes for good causes. But I was just this seems like a sneaky way that I can just not eat. I could never not do it all day, for sure. And then I would just feel bad about binge eating peanut butter at the end of the day. There was definitely some disordered, obsessive stuff going. And the mental toll of obsessing over food drained my energy so much and made me feel very insecure and stuck. I actually would not only binge and restrict, but purge food sometimes, which I actually completely forgot until I went to write this episode. I was oh yeah, I used to do that. Even once I was out of the dorm in my later years, my binge eating would continue. I remember having a stressful day renewing my passport And I bought 3 Starbucks cookies, like giant Starbucks cookies, eating them on the street in downtown Toronto. Like I was like, this is the answer to me, like crying and feeling so frustrated and alone at the time. I remember I lived with a roommate in the last 2 years, and she brought birthday cake home and put it in our fridge, and I ate all of it like before she could even get to it. I needed to eat something. I remember also around that time, like buying a box of cookies at the grocery store and like eating half of them on the way home and then hiding them under my bed. I wouldn't put them in the kitchen so nobody would know about it. But then like they wouldn't make it through the day. I would just eat the entire box of cookies. And then if I felt really bad about it, I would purge. So legitimately, I had some disordered eating for sure. And then I discovered group fitness. I did try out for the dance troupe at my university, but I came from like a tiny town. My dance skills were nowhere near these fit girls. So I just couldn't. I probably could have done it, honestly, but I felt so embarrassed and uncomfortable. I didn't do it. But instead, in the same gym, I discovered group fitness. And at that time, my relationship with group fitness was a bit of a dichotomous one. On one hand, it became my sanctuary, my absolute sanctuary, a place where I felt a sense of belonging and community and regained some control over my life. I began to take an interest in and learn about fitness, which, led me to where we are today. But on the other hand, it quickly turned into something that I relied on too heavily, almost like a crutch. And another thing like I was not aware of at the time, but I can definitely see now, is it was related to food, right? Like I may have been telling myself I was on the moral high ground and doing so great because I went to the gym literally at least once every single day, in addition to all the walking that I was doing and the yoga classes that I was going to. Whether I knew it or not, it was fueled by this understanding that I had, maybe not even consciously, that you eat too much food or you eat any food and you have to burn off the food and more, right? Which I considered myself a group fitness bunny, but really it was like if I didn't hit every cardio class, I'd feel anxious and guilty. And cardio was very good this time, by the way. It wasn't just about moving my body. It probably did help with my stress relief actually, but it caused other problems. It became about burning off food and trying to earn my worthiness because it was giving me a sense of control. I had this inaccurate belief that because I was controlling this thing, like controlling my food, or so I thought, controlling my fitness, I was okay. But it turned into skipping out on some of the very normal university experiences, like going out or declining breakfast on the weekend, at the diner with my roommates because I had to go to a 7:30 a.m. spin class on a Saturday. And looking back, I can see how I justified those behaviors as being dedicated or disciplined. But now I know, not just because I'm now an expert on the fitness and mindset, but I have, coached hundreds of clients through this, but I see now how that line of thinking was actually having a toll on my well-being. So it has taken a lot of trial and error, a lot of mindset shifts, and a deep understanding of what true health and balance look like to get to where I am today. So if you've ever found yourself in a similar cycle of feeling like you have to push harder to get results, then you're in the right place. If my story resonated with you, I'd love for you to leave a 5-star review and let me know why. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a future episode. It's going to be so good. And if you're thinking, wow, I'm stuck in that cycle that she's talking about too, don't worry, because in the next episode, I'm going to share exactly how I broke free from obsessing over food and exercise, how I lost 30 pounds in university, subsequently put on a lot of muscle, and finally started feeling confident, calm, and consistent without ever stressing about weight loss ever again. Thank you so much for tuning into the first episode of the Muscles and Mindset Revolution podcast.